what is the purpose, your rules, your precepts? Why do you practice renunciation?
The purpose of it is developing the strength of your mind. And the absolutely first step for that is to be able to say no to yourself. To say no to your desires, whims, habits. So all of the main rules upon which our practice is based, they're very practical, so to speak, functional, necessary in that sense. They're not held because of a belief or because of the authority. They're held because they hold in themselves the practice of meditation and development of the mind. So basically think of the rules as a fertile ground where you can plant seeds of a plant or some trees. So it's not a tree, it's not a seed, but having a grown tree would be impossible if you don't have a fertile ground to do so. So in that sense you see the necessity of the fertile ground, you see the necessity of the rules. Without them, there's no point if you're cultivating seeds and watering the plant when you have destroyed the fertility of the ground, when you have compromised the fundamental rules.
But what are you trying to do?
Sorry?
Nothing.
Nothing.
What are you trying to grow?
Well, you're trying to grow the freedom of your mind, because the mind is bound by the desire, by the craving, by the feelings. Mind is liable to feelings, which means when suffering arises, you won't be able to prevent it. When pleasure arises, you won't be able but to indulge it. It means you're controlled by what you feel. And you're controlled because the mind is too weak in regard to what it feels. So you want to become stronger than all those things. And the first step to developing of that strength is mere restraint, being able to say no. Not to everything, forever, but to certain things that are inseparable from desire, craving, ill will, hate, anything unwholesome basically.
So are you eating at a certain time of the day?
Yeah, eating at a certain time, it's just like you eat because it is necessary for the body to remain alive. But you don't want to be using it as a sensuality, as a form of escape, and then you just keep eating throughout the day, eating only what you like, and so on. So you recognize a degree of necessity to eat, and that's what you focus on. And yeah, if you eat enough calories once in a day, that's absolutely fine. There is absolutely no reason to eat more. Eating more than what you need is going to be bound to come out of sensuality, out of craving, out of desire.
But it seems that lots of suffering. In the evening you're hungry maybe.
Yeah. But it's not a life-threatening hunger. So basically, in the evening you have desire to eat, and instead of habitually just giving into desire and satisfying it by any means, you force yourself to reflect on it, because you know you won't eat, you won't break the rule. So as a form of restraint, what's the alternative? Well, it's to think, okay, why? How? Why am I pulled by this desire? Why is this hunger controlling my mind? And that's how you go beyond the desire,
But
eventually.
If I ate a meal at night, if I started eating, then I will be free from desire.
No, you won't. You'll be free from hunger. But the hunger was not your desire. Yeah, there would have been no desire without the hunger. But the hunger is not a desire. Desire is always mental. So when the physical state controls your mind, then it becomes a desire. Which means you might go and remove the physical state, but the liability of your mind to be controlled by the physical states remains. Which means next physical thing comes and you're going to equally be bound by the same desire. Hence, you can't satisfy desire. And everybody knows that. You can be chasing and engaging in all sorts of sensuality. You can never satisfy desire. Why? Because it's not there where you're trying to satisfy. You're satisfying physical circumstances. But those are not what the desire is. Yeah, desire is inseparable from those, but it's not those. It's not those things.
So your precepts don't.
So the precepts are basically just like laying out the ground where you can practice. Just putting up a fence, fertilizing the ground, and agreeing upon those things. As a starting point, you have to start somewhere. So all the precepts were basically, that's what I mean, they were quite functional in that sense. You eat, in the beginning the monks were allowed to eat in the evening. It was not specified to eat only in the morning. They could eat many times a day. But then it was sort of becoming impractical for various reasons. Going out at night to collect the food, getting out all sorts of accidents and so on. So then it was sort of a rule was brought in. You eat it at the right time. So you don't go out to collect food at night. You go during the day. Then they could still eat at night, but then you stop eating at night as well. You just eat when you go and get the food. It just becomes more practical, easier, and you don't spend the rest of your day being concerned and planning about the food. You spend it practicing restraint and practicing wisdom and practicing meditation.
Like precepts against alcohol.
Well, the 8 precepts, those are the basis of practice. Those are that's what defines their fertile ground. They're not negotiable. Like, how can you possibly be practicing the clarity of the mind, developing the strength of your mind, when you're drinking alcohol that's clearly, directly affecting the clarity of the mind? And it has no practical value. Like, you need to eat some food. You need to meet a certain amount of calories. But you don't need to drink alcohol. Hence, it's always going to be sensual reasons. And even people say, I drink only because people around me pressure me to do so. That's also sensual reason. You're basically afraid of affecting adversely the sensual environment around you. You don't want to upset anyone. You don't want to have to be kind of ostracized or whatever by your friends or whatnot. So you drink. It's ridiculous. You're trying to develop the strength of your mind, yet you're giving to the basic weaknesses of like, oh, they're laughing at, they're teasing me. So what? How can you be beyond suffering, beyond affected by emotion when someone's mere teasing is affecting you, and you can't maintain your behavior? Timmy?
But there's precepts that's not all that you have to do.
No.
There's a lot more work.
Of course, it's a fertile ground.
Yeah. You
can have all the fertile ground you want if you don't have the actual well-cultivated seeds, and if you don't put the work in maintaining that soil, they're not going to grow.
So
because you have to water it, you have to provide enough sun, you have to work around it once you plant the seed. But just leaving, just hoping for the soil to do its own, you won't. To do the work, you won't. It's just the soil.
So you're saying you can have 300 rules, 1,000 rules, 5 rules, as many rules as you want.
Right.
It doesn't matter because there's other work that needs to be done.
Yeah. You need to have the rules that cover the necessary basis, and those are basically what is known as 8 precepts. Or 10 precepts if you want to take it maybe a step further, but that's it. Everything else is derived from that basis. It cannot add more to it. So in that sense, yeah, having 3,000 rules, it's not necessary. If you've covered the basis of these 8 precepts, if you don't do anything unwholesome on the account of the 8 precepts, that's it. You have sufficient basis for complete freedom from suffering, from feelings and everything else.
What can you give what's a basic set precept that anybody can follow? They can establish themselves in virtue.
Right. Don't kill, don't steal, don't cheat, or preferably, or ideally, be a completely celibate. Live a completely celibate lifestyle. Don't. Sorry.
No drinking.
Yeah, don't drink and take drugs, in the sense of don't consume things that directly affect mindfulness and awareness and composure. So you have to, those are like the 5 basic ones, and they have to be basically taken seriously. And I'm talking about somebody who still lives in the world. Like for a monk, then you have the 8 precepts. You have the non-beautification, non-indulgence in sleep, and not eating at the wrong times. As in not just spend the whole day eating around and thinking about food. So you wanna start kind of harnessing your mind, basically. Harnessing the outpours, the behaviors of your mind that are founded upon desire and non-restraint. So basically you're setting up a fence, tying it down, pinning it down until it calms down. That's what the precepts are. But in itself, it's not enough. They're necessary basis, the container, but then the work needs to be done within that. Once you fence the yard off for a wild horse, you need to start training it. Yeah, you can't start training it, inconceivable, when he can always run off into the mountains. But now you fenced it off completely. You repaired any patches that he was escaping through. You brought it back. Now he can't escape. You wait for it to calm down, because he will calm down sooner or later. He's going to get tired running around in circles. When it's calm, then you start training it. But then, if you remove the fence and you haven't trained it, it's going to run off again. So you have to keep the fence until it's fully trained. And when it's fully trained, then it doesn't matter if the fence stays. And that's basically the definition of the precepts. So even as a lay person, the 5 precepts are a certain degree of that fence, which is a good thing, because you are taming down the wild horse, which what mind is really for most people. So you're taking a bit more control over your own behavior, over your own desires, over your own sort of impulses that usually you can't say no to.
That's where growth is. That's where development is.
Yeah, that's the first step.